Hannah, Elizabeth, and young Emma Bocock are now less than 100 miles from Salt Lake Valley. 3 refined English orphans from the smoke-blackened streets of Sheffield, England. New Mormon converts who have crossed an ocean and 1,300 miles of prairie chasing the Zion of their dreams, where innocence meets blood and faith is about to be forged into steel. Welcome back to Zion's Fire, an American saga of pioneer hopes to polygamous knots, theocracy and resistance to federal troops riding straight into the powder keg. Join me, Debbie Pedersen, as we follow the Bocock sisters. This is episode 3, The Gathering Storm. September 8, 1857. Captain Stuart Van Vliet, U.S. Army Quartermaster, known to the Saints for his fair dealings along the Oregon Trail, hand-picked by General William S. Harney, rides alone into Salt Lake City under a white flag. His orders are logistical: buy hay, grain, and lumber for the approaching army. He carries a letter from General Harney directing Brigham Young to prepare for the army's arrival and facilitate these arrangements. There is also the diplomatic component, the expedition's official purpose: to install Alfred Cumming as territorial governor, replacing Brigham Young. Brigham Young receives him in the Lion House parlor. Van Vliet is polite but blunt. Governor Young, we'll pay fair prices. All we need is forage and timber. The president wants this done peacefully. Brigham's answer is ice. Tell your president that if he sends an army here, we will burn every blade of grass, every house, every stick of timber before we let them set foot in this valley. We have been driven before. It will not happen again. Van Vliet tries reason, promises, even appeals to old friendships. Brigham will not bend an inch. 6 days later, the captain rides out, now convinced the Mormons will fight to the last man. 10 days and 400 brutal miles heading east, he overtakes Colonel Edmund Alexander's main column, camped just west of South Pass. Wagons parked, men waiting for orders that never come. The news lands like a coffin lid. No supplies await. The road ahead is a death trap, and winter is already here. September 17th, 1857. With the season slipping away, the new Gentile governor, Alfred Cumming, rolls out of Fort Leavenworth with his wife Elizabeth, escorted by a regiment of cavalry, hoping to join the advance columns before snow closes the trail. She rides beside him in the Army's finest ambulance, later confiding in letters the uncertainty and hardships of the journey. A day later, September 18th, Colonel Albert Sidney Johnston departs Fort Leavenworth to take command of the distant columns. It is one of the Army's last major movements of the year. Hundreds of promised wagons never arrived. Thousands of mules are scattered across Missouri and the plains. The great Southern freight contracts have collapsed into scandal and lawsuits. Johnston knows he is already too late, but he marches anyway. The army that was meant to overawe Zion is scattered across 800 miles of prairie and mountain, moving in starving fragments, while winter rushes down from the north. Strangers in Zion. Another wagon train rolls through the valley, this one from Arkansas. The Baker-Fancher party, bound for California. Southern drawls, a large cattle herd kicking up dust, and a presence that stirs something dark in the war-braced city. They camp on the Jordan River, wagons circled tight, expecting to buy flour, fresh vegetables, and a few days' rest. Instead, they meet closed doors and cold stares. Brigham's order is absolute. Nothing is to be sold to the Gentile immigrants. Every kernel of grain is for the saints alone. The Arkansans protest. We've got cash, same as anyone. You can't starve us out. We're just passing through. But in Salt Lake City, September 1857, passing through feels more like invasion. Old wounds from Missouri and Illinois still fester. Mobs that burn homes. Governors who issued extermination orders. Rumors swirl like smoke. These Southerners are Missouri wildcats in disguise. Poisoners. Braggarts who claim they've got a gun, the one that killed Joseph Smith himself. In a city braced for war, rumors are dynamite. Frustrated, the train circles its wagons one last time south of the city, then turns toward the southern road, riding straight into legend and into horror. The sisters arrive, September 12th, 1857. Out on the trail, the Jesse B. Martin Company crests Little Mountain. Below them lies the Salt Lake Valley at last. Hannah, Elizabeth, and 14-year-old Emma roll down the canyon and on into Immigration Square, the end of their 6-month trek. They believe the worst is behind them. They are wrong. The city that greets them hums with defiance, gripped by a burning hot surveillance and a devotion called the Reformation. The Nauvoo Legion patrols while war preparations clamp tight. Brigham has declared martial law. Obedience to Brigham is obedience to God. The saints obey his every word. 500 miles east, the army stumbles through Wyoming's high plains. 300 miles south, at Mountain Meadows, blood already stains the sand. A whispered horror not yet reached the city. The 7th Handcart Company. In April 1857, Charles Law, the Yorkshire shoemaker who converted the Bocock sisters, steps off the George Washington into Boston Harbor alone. His plan to spirit away his oldest daughter, 2-year-old Elizabeth, collapsed when illness kept the child ashore. Safely back in Maria's arms, his wife of 3 years and mother of their 2 daughters, Maria is a woman who despises everything Mormon. Maria refused baptism, refused Zion. Charles's own parents have cut him off for abandoning wife and children in what they call a shameful delusion. This is the man who boards the immigrant train west. Family, friends, trade, country, all left behind for a desert kingdom he has never seen. Iowa City, his meager savings buy him no wagon seat. Unlike the Bocock sisters, cushioned by their toll gate income, Charles is assigned to the 7th Handcart Company, Christian Christensen's gritty band of 330 souls, mostly Danish, Swedish, and Norwegian converts, pulling 68 handcarts and 3 supply wagons. Surrounded by Scandinavians who speak little English, Charles, one of 5 men to a single overloaded cart, struggles to communicate, his Yorkshire accent swallowed in a tide of Nordic tongues. They roll out June 15th, bound for 1,300 miles of dust, river crossings, and mountain passes. Axles splinter. Quicksand on the Platte swallows wagon wheels. Children limp in worn-out boots. Toddlers waste away from black canker. Scandinavian hymns rise at dusk, but Charles, isolated by language and the ache of the family he left, clings only to the glowing promise in Orson Pratt's pamphlets. War rumors chased them across the plains. Talk of an American army marching on Zion, of the Nauvoo Legion. The pace never slackens, 15, sometimes 20 miles a day. September 13th, one day after the Bocock sisters roll into Emigration Square, Charles Law staggers in behind a handcart, beard caked with dust, eyes fixed on the Wasatch Peaks. He has reached Zion, and Zion is already at war. Conclusion. September 1857 burns itself out on the high plains. 500 miles east, Johnston's army stumbles forward, harassed by Mormon raiders, starved by empty wagons and burned grass. Brigham Young's scorched earth orders have turned Zion into a fortress. The Bocock sisters, Hannah, Elizabeth, and young Emma, stepped down from their wagon into a Salt Lake Valley that pulses with martial defiance. Their long-dreamed Zion is no gentle refuge. Polygamy stares them in the face. Obedience is demanded as divine law, and war drums echo in every street. Charles Law's shining vision frays against the reality of a prophet turned warlord. And far to the south, a horror stains the sand at Mountain Meadows. The full truth still hidden, but already poisoning the air. This is Zion's Fire, Episode 3, The Gathering Storm. Elizabeth Bocock is my husband's great-great-grandmother. The storm is gathering, the pressure is building. Zion's Fire is about to ignite. Post-show notes and a look at Episode 4 are coming up. Don't move. Okay, why Van Vliet, and did he ride alone under a white flag of truce into Salt Lake City? Yes. The mission of the Army was to replace Brigham Young and assert federal authority. Van Vliet was sent ahead to avoid bloodshed and arrange for winter quarters for the Army. So he had developed a cordial relationship with the Mormons when he was working as a quartermaster along the Oregon Trail about a decade ago, when the Mormons were first coming out to the Utah Territory, what became the Utah Territory. Okay, he had gained sympathy for their situation, and he had even employed Mormons to help out along the trail. And so it was because of this working relationship and because of his sympathetic view towards them that he even was able to get an audience with Brigham Young, because Brigham Young did not know him personally, but other Mormon leaders did. And that's why General Harney sent Van Vliet into Salt Lake alone under a white flag and with this letter. Okay, explaining what it was the military's plans were. Okay, but Brigham Young, he flatly refused to supply them or assist the Army in any way. And he made it very clear that he viewed the Army as an invasion and that the Mormons would do whatever it took to keep the troops from coming in. They would not come in peacefully, and that they would burn the entire settlement to the ground if necessary. Okay, so let's go back and look at the timeline a little bit. So the Mormons arrive in that area that became the Utah Territory in July 1847. Okay. At that time, it is Mexican territory. But within 6 months, it becomes U.S. territory. So originally, when they settle there, they are settling outside of the United States, but it quickly becomes part of the United States. And within 2 years, they organize the provisional state of Deseret and elect Brigham Young as their governor. But this governorship was extra-legal because it was self-declared, it was a theocratical government, and it had no constitutional or congressional sanction. Okay, so let's recap that. So it's July 1847 that the Saints arrive at this is the place, and this is where they're staying. Within 6 months, this territory becomes U.S. territory. And then within 2 years, the Mormons organize the provisional state of Deseret and elect Brigham Young their governor, which is extra-legal. Okay, but a year later, the U.S. government does recognize Brigham Young as the governor. And so from late 1850, September 1850, until 1857, when President Buchanan revokes Brigham Young's governorship, he serves legally as the governor. In 1851, that's when the federal government began sending in judges, Indian agents, surveyors, etc. They all clashed with Brigham Young's theocratic control. And it was these tensions between these federal agents and judges that were sent to Utah that it was these tensions and escalations that led to the Utah War. Okay, the Mormon Reformation, what was it? This is a radical call to purify the saints for the second coming of Christ. It runs from 1856 to 1857, and it is one of the most intense and transformative periods in early LDS history. Yet, it is surprisingly unknown and not discussed. It profoundly shaped Mormon culture, especially in issues of obedience and repentance, and in the treatment or impact on the new immigrants. Okay, by the mid-1850s, church leaders believed the saints had grown lax spiritually. There's thousands of new converts coming in. They're coming from Britain and Scandinavia. They're arriving there mostly poor, often sick, and very unfamiliar with the full rigor of frontier Mormonism. So Brigham Young and some of his apostles decide that a dramatic spiritual revival was necessary for this anticipated coming of Jesus Christ. What did it involve? Okay, fiery sermons and public confession. And in these sermons, the saints were accused of widespread sin. And they were urged and sometimes pressured to stand in sacrament meeting and publicly confess their sins, which ranged from adultery to failing to pay their tithing. Okay, it also required rebaptism. This was a sign of your renewed commitment. Tens of thousands of members, including lifelong saints, were rebaptized. It became almost mandatory, and refusal could mean being cut off from the church. And then you had this incredible surveillance. It was called the Home Missionary Program, which later became the Home Teaching Program. And so it was teams of local leaders visited every household and asked them this whole list of questions. Do you pray morning and night? Do you commit adultery? Do you pay your tithing? Do you speak out against authority? There was, I believe, 27 questions that every household was asked. Okay, and then polygamy. So during this period, polygamy is super ramped up. It is the sign of obedience. So there were many men who were unwilling or unable to enter into plural marriage, and they would sometimes be publicly shamed or threatened with the loss of their standing. So this had an enormous impact on polygamy, and it was just rampant during this time period, and just basically required by the new immigrants coming in. So this is what the sisters, this is what they stepped into. They just happened to hit this ramped up time period when they walked into Salt Lake Valley. Next, in episode 4, the Southern Horror breaks. Mountain Meadows Massacre scars Zion, its truth raw and unsparing. The Bocock sisters, barely settled, face a valley shaken by blood, their faith and fates tested. Stay with me. The storm is howling, but it's far from over. See you on the trail.